So some nerfs to kill rigs, commandos and buggies, but some buffs to looters, flash kits and mega knobs. Let's talk about the changes to Orks in the new chapter approved. Hello and welcome back to Warspets Tactics, where today we're talking Orks, and in particular focusing on the new points changes that came out of chapter approved 2022. It has been a couple of weeks since we knew about these changes. Sorry I've been a touch slow about getting videos out about it, but there's been really quite a lot of other news going on, and the release of that whole new Tau Codex. In any case, certainly before these changes, Orks are one of the stronger armies in 9th edition. A slew of powerful datasheets, and in particular some very nasty combos that you can do with Ork freebooters. Generally had them on top of a fair few tournaments, though I wouldn't have said that they're one of the top factions in the whole game. After these points adjustments, I would argue that Orks are probably going to be weaker overall. Some fairly hefty nerfs falling on some of their top units, while a lot of their more underwhelming things have taken points buffs. Though I'd say with quite a lot of these internal balance type changes, a lot of the weaker stuff just merely gets up to being good-ish, and perhaps still isn't strong enough to fill in for the raw power that some of the top datasheets had. In any case though, let's talk through the changes, go through each unit, how it went up and went down, and how strong I think that the unit is as a result. First up, I thought we'd start with the nerfs, and then go through all the buffs. First up, it's not particularly great news for commandos, going up to 12 points per model rather than 10. Really quite a hefty points bump per model to be honest, going up 20%. So if you were taking a minimum unit of 5 of them, that's now going to cost you 60 points rather than 50. To be honest, despite this points bump, I still think that they're very playable indeed. In general, you more want commandos for their forward deployment screening and the ability to jump forward and do actions and take objectives, and I still think that they're going to be worth it for that role at 60 points, even above 50. I'd say perhaps this more hurts players who are using big units of commandos for actual genuine threats. You're going to feel the points increase a lot more if you were taking loads of them, rather than just a few small units of 5. The kill rig's gone up by 20 points, it's 210 points now, so up 11%. To be honest, I'm really not surprised that that nerf came. Just compared with a lot of the other Ork vehicles, it was just enormously powerful. Maybe somewhat similar to the Grey Knight Dread Knight, it's just a vehicle that's very tough, very fast, and then active in every single phase of the game, meaning they perhaps overshadowed a lot of the other heavier vehicles in the Ork Codex. I feel like 20 points is a fairly sizable nerf though. It does take the shine off them quite a bit, as they're still basically standard vehicle targets that can be guns down by heavy anti-tank fire. I think we will genuinely see less of these guys as a result. Next up, the Beast Boss on a Swigosaur has caught a very hefty nerf indeed, going up 30 points to 175, a 21% points increase. He certainly could and can make some obscenely damaging combos and very durable bosses with this datasheet. I think as soon as the codex dropped, virtually everyone seemed to be in agreement that he seemed a bit cheap for what he did. Though still, a big 30 points increase does seem fairly harsh for him. I think I might have been a bit more tempted to put him up something like 15 or 20 myself. It's still good and can certainly cause carnage when stacked with a couple of relics or warlord traits, but again I do feel like he's going to be less desirable compared with the competition. If you're not building for a speed war, I think we might see more war bosses and mega armor as a result. Less speed, but maybe a little bit better value for what they do. The character version of the Beast Boss has also gone up by 15 points as well. Mozrog Scragbad, the Snakebite boss, he's 185 points now, so just 10 points more than the regular Beast Boss. I feel he's now a little bit better balanced against the generic option. He does offer some seriously powerful benefits in himself, but perhaps didn't compete quite as well compared with picking your own very powerful warlord trait and relic. I feel that Snakebites in general might be a little bit less desirable now that you can't mix Ork clans within the same army in tournament lists. Snakebites seem like a clan that you only really want for squig units, things like the Squig Hog Riders or the Beast Bosses themselves, and now you have to commit to an entire army of them. I think that Snakebites in general are going to be less popular. Finally, for Orky nerfs, there's a couple of fairly hefty tone downs of the two most powerful buggies. The Rockatrock Squig buggies, which I'd argue were one of the most powerful datasheets in the game, they're plus 20 points or a big plus 22% nerf. Again, these guys were very cheap for what they did, basically being a good artillery platform with none of the usual weaknesses of artillery, being both very fast, pretty tough, and also somewhat decent in close combat too. I'm not sure how much they were a problem anymore after those balanced data slate changes, meaning that you can only take one unit of them. But still, if you are taking that one max unit now, that's going to cost you 60 points more than it was before. As a tool to have in the army, I still think it could well be a price worth paying. Making it rain strength 5, damage 2 shots is certainly great for clearing objectives, but this does make them a bit less of an auto-include in my opinion. Finally, the Megatrack Scrapjet has gone up to 100 points, plus 10 points from 90, and a plus 11% points increase. Again, perhaps the other most auto-include of any of the buggies, and certainly a very popular one in Freebooter's Speed War. I feel that points increase seems kind of fair. I think 100 points is still a decent cost for that many rockets, and if we're looking at internal balance of the buggies now, I feel that we're going to see a lot more custom booster blasters plays, a hail of Dagger shots backed up by a serious amount of close-range flamer firepower, all on a very cheap platform indeed. I perhaps do feel that the Rocket Truck and the Megatrap Scrapjet are partly paying the price for the Freebooters clan trait. They're certainly efficient firepower, but they add far more to an army of Freebooters, the Megatracks hitting on 4s, and the Rocket Truck Squig Buggies being a pretty optimal choice for actually triggering the Freebooters' benefit. They hit on 4s anyway with their main weapon, but might be able to sniper units and trigger the benefit for the rest of the army. Overall, I do feel that the nerfs really have hit some of the more competitive units in the army fairly hard. Codex Orks is definitely going to be a bit more internally balanced after this, though it's certainly going to be losing a fair bit of power compared with the rest of the field. I think just about every competitive Ork list was using at least 2 or 3 of the units on this list, though of course a few more options might have opened up with the buffs. Perhaps the only lack of change that I was kind of surprised to see was that the Wasp Bomb Blaster Jet and the Dagger Jet both stay exactly the same points cost. The Blaster Jets in particular, despite their very high price tag, are taking quite a lot in competitive lists right now, just because they put out an obscene amount of firepower, really fast movement, and then 2d6 shots at d3 plus 3 damage, a stat line that very few other things in the game can quite match. I think the Dagger Jet also remains incredibly strong for the points, though as per the balanced data slate, you are only limited to bringing 2 of these along now, so their actual impact of the cheap data slates is somewhat limited. It's really not all bad news for Ork players though, as seriously quite a lot of data slates also went down in points cost, some of them just helping out some fairly underperforming units, some of which I think have got really quite competitively interesting. First up, Mega Knobs have seen a nice boost, they're down to 30 points from 35, and I feel that this really gets them where they need to be in 9th edition. 30 points for 3 toughness 5 wounds at a 2+ save is pretty decent. They can certainly handle elite infantry and melee very well, and they seem like a good choice for jumping out of transports. Now they're a little bit more points efficient, I think we will see more people experimenting them. It's good to have another nice Ork melee unit to lead into battle, as opposed to just relying on Freebooters' guns. Next up, the Battle Wagon variants all dropped by 15 points, a change that I think absolutely definitely needed to happen comparing them to the Kill Rig and Hunter Rig. Though I'm still not convinced that they have the best internal balance between the 3 battle wagons, I'm really not a fan of the Gun Wagon or the Bonebreaker still, even at that reduced points cost. The standard battle wagon though I've got a lot more time for, that's now only 105 points, which really is a crazily low price tag for 16 wounds at toughness 7 with a 3+ save, plus the ramshackle rule for an extra bit of security. I feel like we're genuinely going to see some battle wagons in play now, most likely upgraded with a 15-point death roller, allowing them to be a pretty nasty threat in close combat as well, at least to small squads of infantry. 120 points worth of either rolling battle bunker or Meganog delivery system, and then annoy the enemy by getting in the way and run over their infantry in melee. Killer cans dropped by 5 points, they're now just 35 points base. Certainly not the most efficient Ork heavy support unit, but they were still occasionally seeing niche playing competitive lists. They were already quite a cheap way of putting ramshackle wounds on the table. With Grotzookers or big shooters, they're now only 35 points, a drop of 13%, and the rocket launcher version has gone down 9% to 50. When you could get a unit of 3 of them for just 105 points now, they're going to be quite an efficient little unit just to use as an annoyance. That's 15 wounds with a 3+ save plus ramshackle, and I certainly feel that they punch hard enough in combat. While they have a full squad, that's 12 attacks hitting on 4s, at strength 8, AP -3, damage 3. I think they've gone from a very fringed unit to one that's genuinely interesting. Next, there's a welcome points cut to the Looters, dropping by 2 points down to 15, a 12% reduction. I think they were a good unit to target out of the Orky firepower units. Currently, if I'd been choosing between them, Flashkits and Tank Busters, it would have been Tank Busters every time for me, so this does help bring a little bit of balance. It's definitely a good buff, though I'm still not sure if they've really quite arrived in terms of being efficient enough. It's quite nice that they can fire on the move and at long range, but their shooting still isn't enormously efficient, and I think perhaps more than anything else it really struggles against a lot of the meta armies at the moment. Damage 2 really hates all these -1 damage mechanics going around, they don't particularly like very high saves, and they're the wrong side of strength 8 if you're facing other Orks for ramshackle. Still though, against some armies maybe like Drukhari, they'll absolutely shine, and they seem like a really good pairing to go with the cheaper battle wagon now. Drive them around as a fast moving battlefield bunker, and blitz people with the open-topped Dagger gun. Flashkits have also seen a 2 points reduction, but seeing as they were already quite a bit more expensive than looters, it's not quite as big a change percentage wise, only dropping 8%. I feel this kind of puts them in a very similar place to the looters, a unit that I thought was a bit suboptimal before, now more usable if you want to make them work. The difference between them and looters, I think, is mainly that you just have to play around with their stratagem to allow them to shoot twice against the closest unit, and that does mean that they would have to be outside of a transport if you want to make that work. Otherwise, compared with looters, better AP, lower strength and range, and again have the slight problem of that 2 damage. Finally, as if that weren't enough for Orky firepower, the mech guns are down to 40 points each, all apart from the custom mega cannon, which remains at 45. That's an 11% points reduction on things like the smasher gun or the bubble chucker. I think this one's quite a nice fun change, to be honest, a little bit better internal balance within the datasheets, though I still think if you want the best take all comers gun, I'm afraid I still think it is the custom mega cannon. The others will now be a little bit tougher for the points, but you just can't really beat the average numbers of the custom mega cannon. It can certainly swing high or low, but if it swings high it could easily kill a battle tank in a single turn. Multi-shots, good range, AP and damage are all great things. Finally, on the Forge World side of things, the Squiggoth has dropped down. It's 170 points, down from 190, a minus 11% points reduction. Quite nice they thought of some of the Forge World units as well with this update. Currently the Squiggoth doesn't really function too differently to the Battle Wagon, a little bit tougher, some slightly underwhelming firepower, and a bit of anti-tank damage in melee with its goring horns. Perhaps might have been a bit more interesting if the Battle Wagon wasn't so cheap, but in general out of the two I would struggle to pick this over the Battle Wagon, where a Battle Wagon with a Death Roller is 120 points. Still though, certainly gets it closer to getting there, and nice to think of one of the Forge World units. Overall, out of these, the ones that interest me the most are the Mega Knobs change, the regular battle cannons, and probably the killer cans. I think we will see people be tempted by those to fill in some of the gaps left by the points increases of the other units. Maybe we'll see some people experimenting with some more Blitz Brigade type lists, Mega Knobs in battle wagons with Death Rollers, closing in fast to crump the enemy. So let me know what you think of the changes then. As I said, I think overall it is a small power nerf in total for the Orks, but I feel it definitely makes the codex a bit more internally balanced. When it first dropped, I was a bit disappointed just how much better some of the datasheets were than others, so it meant that you didn't really want to play with several of them. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to Allspecs Tactics, I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming, including any details of Games Workshop's news and updates. I'm sure we'll have plenty more Ork videos to come at some point or another. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention the Allspecs Tactics Patreon page, which is what allows me to keep on making so many of these quite so regularly. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next for the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways, with the chance to win some really big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, then the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.